Hey, welcome back to Musicians Hall of Fame. What are we calling this? The questions series. Okay, Brittany, carry on. Where'd we end up?
Did you write for Johnny Cash or?
Well, I knew Johnny, and Billy Sherrill produced some stuff on Johnny in 1984, I think. And he cut one of my songs, and but unfortunately, as you know, that's one of the things about being a songwriter. I've got a copy of it, and it was called
I love it.
I Know You Love Me.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like Look What the Dog Drug In. It was a kind of a funny song. And I called it the Pepe Le Pew song because I used to love Looney Tunes, and I love Pepe Le Pew, how he always thought that he was a ladies' man, and so this song was like, I know you love me, how can you resist, and all this kind of stuff when the girl obviously did not like him. And so Johnny cut it, because he'd done A Boy Named Sue and One Piece at a Time, and those were really funny, good songs. And this was a novelty-like song. But for some reason, it didn't make the album, but that happens. The same thing happened. The Judds cut one of my songs, and my co-writer, Larry Jenkins, who was actually Conway Twitty's nephew. Conway's real name's Harold Jenkins. And Larry's one of my dearest friends, and we wrote a lot of songs together, and he's like a brother. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I've got a cut on Johnny Cash and the Judds, but nobody's ever going to hear them,
I think they should.
Oh.
That's my favorite.
I wish you were the head of the label.
Okay, and then were you on a songwriter?
I was nominated for Song of the Year for Somebody Lied, and I was like briefly on the CMA when they showed the nominees, and then I was on we had a TV network here called TNN, the Nashville Network, and they had a short-lived Songwriters Award show, and so actually this song, Many Every Word He Said, was nominated for top. I said that a minute ago. It was a top 10 song of the year. So I was on that show and accepted the award for that. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. That was the year that Garth was on there too, with Friends in Low Places, and Vince was with When I Call Your Name. So that was a whole lot of fun. And that was also, Randy Travis did one of mine called Old 8 by 10, which was the title cut of his third album, and it was a double platinum. It was nice, and Randy was a great singer. Randy was a great guy. I hate so bad what happened to Randy. I saw Randy at George Jones' funeral, and we talked, and we were talking about Old 8 by 10. He was regretting that he had not released it as a single. Matter of fact, I'd read an article where they asked him in a songwriter book, was there a song you wish you had released? He goes, oh yeah, it was Old 8 by 10. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks, I think it was about 2 weeks after George's funeral, that he had the stroke and everything.
Did you write for George?
I did. Yeah, George did 3 of my songs. So.
All right. I think you covered a lot of that. So
that's enough of that.
We could do a whole show on that.
Wake up. We're coming back with something interesting.
It says, would you do a documentary about your experience?
I just did. That was it. That's all.
Okay. Well, all right, we'll keep going.
I literally hear people snoring out there now.
They can fast forward.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, so Johnny Nowhere, he asked, are you the same guy who owned Chambers Guitars Music in Chattanooga back in the 60s and 70s?
Okay, yeah, I did own Chambers Guitars, but not there.
Right.
I had a few stores here in Nashville. I had one in Kentucky briefly. But there was a guy named Joe Chambers, ironically, in Chattanooga, which is about an hour and a half down the road. It had a music store. Actually, it was a golf and music store. It was weird. And I called him up one day because I thought it was really weird, and I said, hey, he says, can I speak to Joe? This is Joe. I said, well, my name's Joe Chambers. And he goes, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, I have a music store at that time, Smyrna. He goes, yeah. And conversation wasn't going anywhere. I think he didn't really care. So that was into that. Next.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
We were just talking about the guitar store. You had two on West End.
Well, I moved. I built two, but yeah, but
and,
not at the same time.
Your Chet parking space.
Oh yeah. Well, Chet Atkins I was very, very lucky to call Chet a friend, and Chet was just a nice man, Chet Atkins, and so he had done some really cool things for me, and so I opened up this guitar shop on West End, and so we only had 8 parking spots in the front, and Chet would come by the store. I wanted him to be able to park. A lot of times there was a Chili's on one side and Jimmy John's and a Papa John's pizza both on the other side, and people they didn't care. They could just come in there and park. They were thinking, oh, we're only going to be here a minute. Well, everybody thinking they're only going to be in there a minute ended up, my parking lot was full all the time with people buying everything but guitars, So I wanted Chet to have a place to park. So anyway, I had a sign made up and I stuck it on the front step. I said, just pull up and park in the front, Who's going to tell Chet Atkins to move,
What was it, CGP though?
I put on there, parking for Chet Atkins only CGP, because Chet gave himself the title certified guitar player. He had a lot of friends that were doctors and lawyers, always had, something after their name, and he wanted something after his name, and so he gave himself the CGP degree, in which he only gave it to 4 or 5 other people, Steve Warner being one of them.
Yeah.
Our good friend Steve.
Also inductee.
Also got inducted this last October as well. Next.
All right, Chuck S. from Miami, Florida. He says, hi, Joe. I understand that you have been in the music business around Nashville for quite a while, including working as a session guitarist. I'd like to hear you tell your best Nashville session stories on camera, as if you're interviewing yourself.
Okay, well, I was not a session guitarist. I did book a lot of sessions, and I produced a lot of demos and and a few master sessions, for some artists I were producing. But I was, I thought I was a really good guitar player until I got to Nashville, and I found out I need to maybe more look at songwriting. So the guitar players that are here are off the chart, and I'm not saying that I couldn't have been. I just knew that I wanted to be either in a band, playing my own stuff. I just didn't see me spending the time that it would take me to be anywhere near as accomplished as these great musicians are here. They're the greatest in the world. So no, I did not produce any. I will tell you one funny story though. And we had Dolly Parton here the other night, and there was a piano player named Pig Robbins, and Pig is probably the best piano player of that whole 18 period. Bobby Wood and Pig, they played on so many records. When you hear Behind Closed Doors, or you hear Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue, that's Pig on those, just to name a few. And Pig was also played on the Dylan sessions that were here. A funny story about that was that Al Cooper came down on the first session, and Dylan said to Al, "Hey, tell the piano player don't play on the first verse," something like that. And Al said, "Tell him yourself. He's sitting right there." And Dylan said, "I can't." And he goes, "Why not?" And he goes, I just can't call another human being Pig," which, I thought was pretty funny. But that was he's the level of respect, but that was Pig's name is Pig, Argus Pig Robbins, so. But anyway, during the Dolly session, all the guys were giving Pig grief because Pig's blind, and Dolly was wearing her sweater, and everybody's going, "God, Pig, you need to see Dolly's sweater, man. It's just unreal." And so Steve Buckingham, who was her producer, told Dolly what was going on. Dolly is unbelievable, and so there's nothing that I don't think she wouldn't do. And so she goes over to Pig, and she says, Pig, and it was his birthday, by the way, and Pig, I hear the guys are giving you a little bit of grief about the sweater I'm wearing, and I just wanted you to be able to see it too. So she takes his hands and puts them on her chest, and lets Pig, let's say Braille, read her sweater. And I asked her about it the other night. She broke out laughing. She goes, well, it wasn't anything sexual. It was just, I wanted Pig to see what they were talking about. So I thought that was a pretty funny. There's so much stuff that goes on in the sessions. That's a book, and you really need to hear that from the guys themselves. I have laughed till I have cried many times listening to some of those stories, but where I wasn't present. So anyway, that's all of my stories for that.
Well, and just to clarify that, then you opened the guitar stores kind of random because you were mostly songwriting.
I opened the guitar stores because we were having you, and I wasn't having the amount of success that I felt I should have reached by that time, and I thought, well, you need to do something that you can kind of control, and you can't control the music business. You can't control. You can write a hit song. It doesn't mean anybody's going to record it. So it's. So I thought, well, I can. If you buy a guitar for $75, you sell it for $150. You've made $75 or close to it. So that's why I opened the guitar shop.
And while we're on that, just because I'm going to say two different things. One is if you do you make comments? Dad reads all of them. So even if it's 4 a.m, I'll see, oh, he's over there commenting.
I still have musician hours. I don't
Same. Yeah.
always go to bed
You gave it to
early.
me.
Yeah.
But someone mentioned Bill Scallion, and that was at the guitar store.
Well, there was a satire movie. If you've seen Spinal Tap, they did a country version of Spinal Tap called Bill Scallion, and the guys that were shooting the movie were driving down West End Avenue here in Nashville. And the guitar shop, the first one I built on West End, I wanted it to have kind of a gingerbread house look, but gingerbread guitar house, So I had guitars going around the railing and all that, and it got their attention, which is what I was hoping that it would do. I wanted the next Garth Brooks that came to town to go, yeah, that's where I went when I first got here, and so I wanted it to, to kind of draw some, be a little Nashville gaudy, and it was. Anyway, so they filmed some of the movie in the guitar shop. And yeah, I was in one scene, and I kind of just mimicked what John Belushi did in Animal House. I destroyed a guitar on the staircase, so it has me listed as the guitar smasher on the movie Bill Scallion. And golly, what's her name that did All I Want to Do Is Have Some Fun?
Cindy Walker. No, sorry, I'm sorry.
No, Girls Just Want to Have
Oh,
Fun.
Sheryl Crow.
Sheryl Crow did the soundtrack to it, and I know she doesn't remember this, but we were in Atlanta. I was backstage at either the Who or the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young concert, and she goes,
I think it was Crosby.
Was it Crosby? Were you with me?
Yeah.
And she said, were you? And Bill Scallion.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, next.
Okay. Cool. So Scotty from Tennessee, what are the artifacts you would love to add to the museum that you have not collected yet? Do you worry about space to house the objects of the museum?
We've got a lot of space here. It's getting crowded, but we can still add a lot more to it. There's just so many great instruments out there. We just, we hadn't put it on the air yet, but I think it may be coming out next week. What's today? March what? The 25th? Or 6th? 25th. So next week should be the Robbie Krieger interview that we did when we were in L.A. And those guitars that Robbie's Les Paul that he played slide on at the Hollywood Bowl. That would be a great one to have in here. His original SG, actually, Melody Maker SG was stolen. That he did the first 2 albums with, unfortunately. But another guitar I'd love to have has already been bought, and it's in the museum in Seattle.
Which is?
There was a Hendrix guitar from Woodstock.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many. I mean, golly. I mean, I like to have John Coltrane saxophone or golly, a lot of jazz, a lot of big band instruments we hadn't really been able to get to yet.
Anything Beatles?
Everything Beatles. I mean, but that's just never going to happen. I did acquire one Tom Petty-ish guitar, that he had for a while. But there's so many of his guitars. Mike Campbell, I think, is one of the greatest guitar players, one of my favorite all-time guitar players. Any of the great the keyboard, the organ from Woodstock with the Santana. We got the drum set, but I'd love to have Santana's guitar from Woodstock, and the organ, and anything, Who, Led Zeppelin, just any of the great, people that I mean, they don't even have to be somebody like Jimmy Page. It could just be a guitar that was on, like the Zombies guitar player, that was on I think the bass, to tell her no, and she's not there, is at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But any of the instruments that were on bands that had even one hit or 2 or 3 that were major records. There's so many of them. I wish I had Alan Price's keyboard from the Animals, the Vox keyboard or whatever. I mean, Ray Manzarek's keyboard. I mean, there's so many. This just goes on. Terry Kath, all-time favorite guitar player. We've got a bass that he used out at Caribou Studios here, but luckily his daughter did find some of his guitars, but I'd love to have one of those.
And you really wanted the James Jamerson, right? And you got that.
I got one of James Jamerson's basses.
But that was a big one for you.
Oh yeah, it was a big one. His main Fender bass got stolen in L.A., but I did get the he had 2 and I got the other one. So.
Cool. All right, Philip Johns from Smyrna. This one's a little bit longer. Smyrna, Tennessee.
Hi, Philip.
Considering this current state of the music industry, what is the best path for a musician-songwriter to take to get traction in the ever-changing environment in Nashville? Are great songs...
Whoa, stop there.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just, the main thing is, overall, whether you want to be a guitar player or a singer or a writer or whatever, make sure you do it because you love it. If you don't love it, if you wouldn't do it every day, regardless, don't do it, because people will know. They can tell. It comes across. And if you love doing it, it's not work. So in the cream, I don't care what year it is or what the circumstances are, the cream will rise to the top if you're diligent. Now, you can't write a song and put it in a drawer and expect something to happen with it. You have to get out. You have to get a little thick-skinned. One of my Tom Petty songs, you got to have rhino skin, and you got to have elephant balls. That's one of my favorite Petty songs. But it's that true. It's in the real world. You have to really, you have to be able to take some knocks and get up and keep going. But you have to believe in yourself. You have to You can't compare your work to the worst you've heard on the radio. You have to compare it to the best, because that's really who you're competing against. As a songwriter, you can write songs no matter how old you are. Songs don't go bad. Productions change. A lot of stuff in the 80s that had a lot of electronic stuff on it sounds dated, but a great ballad is always a great ballad. And you can take a ballad, whether it be R&B or pop or rock, Alice Cooper had a great ballad. Foreigner's biggest song, whether they may not have liked it, but I Want to Know What Love Is. Their biggest record. Ballads are star makers for songwriters and for artists. So no matter what you do, keep striving to be better. And that was true. The things that Chet Atkins told me, the things Les Paul told me about guitar playing, and things that I heard that Hendrix said. I never met him, but there's always going to be somebody better than you. But you have to keep practicing, be the best that you can be, and because you love it. So, it used to be, and a lot of people were listening to the interview I did with Steve Cropper, and Steve was talking about how he would go and hang out at the radio stations, and some of the people were saying, well, there's not DJs and radio stations anymore. Steve said that. So how is that relevant? Well, you may not, a DJ was somebody that had the power to get your song heard. And a lot of times during that period of time, a lot of people would drive to when they saw an antenna and pull in and go to the radio station and see if they could get the local DJ to play the record. So it might become a regional hit, and then a bigger record label would pick it up and take it nationally. I was talking to Zager and Evans had a song out in 1969, in the year 2525. And I ran into, I think it was Zager one night. How'd you make it? Well, we put it out we put the song out on a small label. It got regional, action, and then a big label picked it up and bought it, So now a DJ, they're calling people now influencers. Well, that's the same thing as I was looking at Dick Clark with Conway Twitty. Dick Clark was an influencer. If he heard our song, he could have sent it to a record label if he liked it and maybe got us a record deal. So DJs were what you call influencers today then. So there's always going to be somebody you need to hear your record that can influence somebody to get it heard or played. They hadn't changed. Great songs haven't changed. People haven't changed to the point that you can still hurt somebody's feelings, you can still make somebody laugh, you can still make somebody cry. And if it's real, if you say things that are real, don't just rhyme something to make it rhyme. It has to have meaning, And if you touch somebody, somebody's gonna hear it. And here, as far as Nashville goes, everybody's heard the Bluebird. I've always called that like a safety net. If you get a job, if you get a chance to be on the stage at the Bluebird, somebody, 6 degrees of separation, somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody is going to say, you need to check this girl out or this guy out. It really hadn't changed in that respect. And now I would say that in place of the regional hits that you would have on an AM radio station in the 60s, you now can do it from your bedroom and have people just like we're doing right now. You start out with, we had 25 subscribers. And now, thanks to you guys, since November, we've got over 30,000 subscribers. Which, by the way, if you really like me, you'll subscribe. So I'm not too proud to beg. And so that's it. be the best that you can be diligent about it, do it whether you want to get paid or not, do it because you love it. If you're good enough and you put yourself out there to where people can hear you, you can't stay locked up in your bedroom. You get out there, get some rhino skin, be prepared to be turned down. If you're there, somebody's going to find you. As Billy Sherrill told me, the cream will rise to the top.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and read the rest of
Hey, you know what, though, before we do that,
Okay,
I
yeah.
think we need to take another break, and we'll be right back. Thank you so much for watching.